His father unexpectedly kicked him out. Years later, he found himself face to face with him again, in an interview for a job at his own company. We are about to find out what happened in this story, but if you like stories like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe. Doing this really helps the channel grow. Now onto the story. Alex sat on the edge of his bed, the morning light filtering through his window, illuminating the remnants of a life he felt increasingly disconnected from. It was his final year of high school, a time that should have been filled with excitement and anticipation, but instead, it was marred by the weight of his father's disapproval. His dad was a hard man, a figure of authority who wore his disdain like a badge. No matter how well Alex did in school, straight A's, honors classes, his father never acknowledged his achievements. "You could do better," he would say, as if good enough was a personal failure. Over time, Alex had come to believe that no matter what he accomplished, it would never be enough. Life at home was strained. Money was always tight, and though they never went to bed hungry, the constant worry loomed like a storm cloud. Alex often thought his father saw him as just another mouth to feed, a burden that made their struggles harder. It was a harsh reality that gnawed at him. His mother worked long hours, a tired smile often plastered on her face, but her eyes spoke of resignation. She rarely stood up for him, perhaps fearful that it would only draw his father's wrath towards her. That silence was a wound that festered in Alex's heart. One evening, the tension reached a boiling point. Alex had just returned from a study group, excited to share his plans for college, when his father's voice sliced through the air. "Get out! You're nothing but a burden." The word struck him like a slap. He froze, disbelief washing over him. His mother's face was pale, and her lips trembled, but she remained silent. "Dad, please, I can. Enough. Just leave." And so, with a heavy heart, he packed a bag, stuffing in clothes and a few belongings, knowing he had nowhere to go. The door slammed behind him, sealing the reality of his father's rejection. The streets felt alien and cold as Alex wandered, his mind racing with confusion and despair. He had nowhere to turn, no safe place to call home. Thoughts of failure and abandonment swirled in his head. He felt alone, grappling with the harsh reality of being kicked out by the man who was supposed to love him unconditionally. For weeks, he relied on the kindness of friends, crashing at their houses when he could. Despite the upheaval, he poured himself into his studies, determined to prove he was more than his father's harsh words. When he received a letter from a prestigious university offering him a scholarship, it felt like a lifeline. The scholarship committee learned about his situation, and they arranged for temporary accommodation until the dorms opened. Alex could hardly believe it. He finally had a chance to escape the chaos of his childhood. University life was a whirlwind of opportunity. He immersed himself in his classes, majoring in business administration, and for the first time, he felt seen and valued. Professors encouraged him, peers supported him, and he thrived. Every good grade was a step toward a brighter future. After 2 years of dedicated service at the company that had offered him the scholarship, Alex earned a permanent position there. The thrill of finally having stability and recognition filled him with hope. He was building a life far removed from the pain of his past. 5 years later, Alex found himself running his own company, a venture that represented years of hard work and resilience. He had transformed his pain into purpose, and each success felt like a triumph over his father's harsh words. The joy of entrepreneurship filled him with a sense of fulfillment he had never known. As he gazed out at the skyline from his office, the weight of his childhood felt lighter. He had created a life he was proud of, and the thought of getting married to Laura filled him with excitement. They exchanged vows in a ceremony filled with love, and as he took on her last name, it felt like a rebirth. His parents had faded from his mind, their absence no longer a void but a relief. He kept an eye on his mother's social media, not out of longing but curiosity. It hurt to see them thriving, yet they never reached out, which only solidified his decision to move on. Then, the unexpected happened. One day, while conducting interviews for an executive role, Alex's heart dropped as he saw the name on the application, his father. The anger and betrayal surged through him. How could the man who had abandoned him now seek to enter the world he had fought so hard to build? As the interview day arrived, his father walked into the conference room, a confident smile masking a lifetime of regret. The moment their eyes met, a flood of emotions washed over Alex, and he struggled to keep his composure. "Thank you for meeting with us," his father began, but the words felt hollow. Alex could see the shock in his father's eyes, yet he quickly averted his gaze. The years of hurt resurfaced, and Alex felt the anger bubbling beneath the surface. He fought to concentrate during the interview, but each of his father's responses felt like a reminder of their fractured relationship. He was furious, not just for the man his father had been, but for the man he still was. When the interview concluded, their eyes met again. In that moment, Alex felt a mix of anger and pity. His father seemed to sense that he wouldn't be getting the job, and as they stood to shake hands, Alex felt the finality of it all. Later that evening, Alex confided in Laura, the woman who had stood by him through every trial. It felt surreal, seeing him again, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I thought I was done with that part of my life." Laura listened intently, her eyes filled with understanding. "You're stronger than you realize, Alex. You've built an incredible life for yourself." As they settled onto the couch, Alex felt a sense of gratitude. He had transformed his pain into resilience, forging a path that honored his journey. The weight of his past was still there, but he learned to carry it with grace. A few days later, as he scrolled through social media, he saw his mother's posts. They had moved to a nicer neighborhood, and a pang of sorrow gripped him. He had built a life, yet the sight of them thriving felt like a bittersweet reminder of what he had lost. He shook his head, trying to push the thoughts aside. It was time to let go, to fully embrace the life he had created with Laura. He didn't need their approval or presence to define his worth, but then, out of the blue, his phone rang. His mother's name lit up the screen, and Alex felt a wave of dread wash over him. He answered hesitantly, his heart racing. "Alex, honey, it's been so long." "I hope you're doing well," she began, her tone casual yet strained. "What do you want?" he asked, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Your father, he really wants this job, and we thought maybe—" "Don't even finish that sentence," he interrupted, his voice harsh. "You want me to help him after everything? You both turned your backs on me when I needed you most." Silence filled the air, and he could almost hear the weight of her disappointment. "We've all made mistakes, Alex. Can't you see that? No. You chose him over me." The words erupted from his mouth, raw and unfiltered. In that moment, he felt a flicker of sadness for her, but it was drowned out by his anger. "I'm done," he said, the resolve hardening in his voice. "Don't ever call me again." As he hung up, a mix of anger and relief washed over him. Laura wrapped her arms around him, grounding him as he processed the whirlwind of emotions. In the days that followed, Alex poured himself into his work with an intensity he hadn't known he possessed. Each project became a canvas for his ambitions, a place where he could channel the energy that had once been consumed by pain. He found himself engrossed in strategic meetings, brainstorming sessions, and late-night coffee-fueled planning. The thrill of building something meaningful filled him with a sense of purpose, and as his company flourished, he began to feel the satisfaction of hard-earned success. But despite this newfound joy, thoughts of his parents lingered in the corners of his mind, whispering echoes of a childhood filled with turmoil. He had constructed a life he was proud of, one filled with support from Laura, colleagues, and friends, but the remnants of his past still cast long shadows. Memories of his father's harsh words and his mother's silence haunted him, making it clear he couldn't avoid them forever. Deep down, he knew he needed to confront those feelings, not for their sake, but for his own peace. 2 years into running his company, Alex felt ready to sever the ties that had bound him to his childhood. He had adopted Laura's last name, a symbolic act that represented the life he was creating, one anchored in love and acceptance rather than rejection. The decision was liberating. He felt as though he had shed an old skin, finally stepping into a version of himself that he had fought hard to become. He was determined to leave behind the pain and the weight of his past. Then, out of nowhere, an email from a colleague shattered his newfound calm, a potential partnership with his father's new company. Panic surged through him, a cocktail of fear and anger bubbling to the surface. Could he really face the man who had pushed him away so callously? The thought of it made his heart race, and yet he knew he had to confront this situation head-on. It was a professional opportunity, and as much as he wanted to refuse, he understood that part of being a leader was to face challenges, even when they hit too close to home. As the meeting approached, Alex prepared himself mentally, rehearsing the points he wanted to address. When the day finally arrived, he entered the conference room, steeling himself against the familiar flood of emotions that threatened to overwhelm him. Sitting across from his father, the tension in the air was palpable. Years of hurt and unresolved feelings hung heavily between them, a wall built from neglect and rejection. "Thank you for meeting with us," his father began, his voice steady and composed. It struck Alex as cold, the kind of professionalism that masked a lifetime of indifference. As they discussed numbers and strategies, Alex found it hard to concentrate. Each glance at his father was a stark reminder of the past, igniting old memories that he had tried so hard to bury, the feelings of abandonment, the pain of being unseen. He felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, and a flicker of something else he couldn't quite identify. As the meeting progressed, Alex fought to maintain his composure, focusing on the task at hand. But when his father glanced at him, he saw a man who looked like a stranger, a figure molded by choices that had shaped their lives in ways he never wanted. As the meeting concluded, relief washed over him, but it was laced with frustration. He had navigated the professional terrain with poise, but the personal aspect remained unresolved, like a wound that refused to heal. Just as he stood to leave, his father's voice cut through the silence. "Alex, don't," Alex interrupted, shaking his head firmly. "You lost the right to talk to me a long time ago." The words hung in the air, heavy with years of resentment and the finality he had longed to express. In that moment, a strange sense of closure washed over him. He didn't need his father's approval, nor did he want it. He had fought to carve out a life filled with love, ambition, and purpose, one that was no longer defined by the shadows of his past. Later that evening, as Alex and Laura settled into their routine, he found solace in her presence. They sat on the couch, a blanket draped over them, discussing dreams for the future. He shared stories of triumphs at work, the excitement of launching new projects, and the camaraderie he felt with his team. The warmth in their small living room enveloped him, a stark contrast to the coldness he had felt growing up. Yet, even in this moment of peace, thoughts of his parents lingered like ghosts. He had built a successful company, yet their absence was a lingering ache in his heart. He realized he needed to confront that pain, not for them, but to free himself from the weight of their choices. One afternoon, feeling inspired, Alex decided to write a letter to his father. It was an act of catharsis, a way to articulate everything he had held in for so many years. He poured out his feelings, the hurt, the anger, but also the lessons learned. Each word felt like a release, a step toward understanding his own journey. "I am not the boy you abandoned," he wrote. "I am a man who has fought for every inch of his life. I am proud of who I am, and I refuse to let your choices define me." As he penned the final line, he felt lighter, as if he had shed a layer of skin that no longer served him. After sealing the letter, he took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. It was a small gesture, but it symbolized his desire to let go of the past. He didn't expect a response, nor did he need one. This letter was for him, a step toward healing that he had needed for far too long. With each passing day, he felt increasingly unburdened, free from the chains that had weighed him down for so long. He had transformed pain into resilience, and his journey was a testament to his strength. The more he embraced his life, the more he realized that he was no longer defined by the choices of others. As he sat with Laura that evening, enjoying a quiet moment together, Alex reflected on what family truly meant. It wasn't just about blood relations, it was about the connections forged through love and support. He had created his own family, one filled with understanding and encouragement, and that was more than enough. In that moment, Alex felt a profound sense of gratitude for the life he had built, and he knew he was finally free to pursue his dreams without the weight of his past holding him back. Each step forward was a celebration of resilience, a testament to the strength he had discovered within himself. He had come so far, and he was ready to embrace whatever the future held.